Let's see if this works. Alright, hello, I'm Jack. This is a review. um, Never been good at public speaking, even though it's a camera. Dreams from Bunker Hill by John Fante. I think I got the book here. Ready on me at all times, just to reference. I even got the one I'm reading at the moment. This one is also good. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm enjoying what I'm liking so far through it. It's a lot funnier, a lot more lighthearted. Um, this one is also funny, but not in the same way. And maybe you won't find it funny, because this character does a lot of things that aren't particularly great. Like but we'll say who John Fante is if you're not familiar with John Fante. John Fante was a writer from like the 20s to some period of time around there, but he wasn't very successful. He went on to be he tried to become an author, try to make a living at it, but didn't work out for him, so he just ended up becoming a screenplay writer for a while. And then after that, I'm not sure. I didn't really properly look what he did after that. I don't think. Maybe I should have looked that one up. But I know he was a screenplay writer. Not seen any of his movies. I don't know how easy they are to find, but they don't come up a lot in discussion, so I'm assuming they're not that great. Only assuming. But like, if you know who John Fante is, you probably know that he was later in life discovered by Bukowski in a public library, LA public library, and his work later went on to be republished and refined and or not refined, but appreciated by a new audience, or an audience that would have appreciated him if they just known who he was. He's even brought up a lot sometimes, Fonte. He was brought up in that fucking shitty film with Bradley Cooper called The Words. There's a scene where they talk about um, Ask the Dust, which this book is very similar to. I mean, same character, but not. I'll get that into a minute. It's not the same book, but it's yeah, it hits a lot of the same beats as Ask the Dust. They're not the same book. The other two are very good as well, as from the Bandini series. It's Wait Until Spring Bandini and Ask the Dust, which are two also great books, but very different. Come from still follow Bandini, but like come from like a different angle. Like one's about more growing up, and it's not even in first person. It's more just life in a unforgiving America of during the Depression. And Ask the Dust comes from the angle of a drunk who was trying to become a writer, or a great one, but which is similar to Dreams on Bunker Hill. But I think, well, I'll explain the plot of Dreams from Bunker Hill. It's about a man who gets an job opportunity to rewrite manuscripts, and without spoiling it, it just goes completely downhill from there. And he just doesn't uh, seem to take any of the or doesn't seem to take any of the opportunities he's presented or given and do them well. He seems to uh, not be able to control himself. But if you've read Ask the Dust, you might read this novel thinking it's the same novel, but I think they come from two different angles of or Fante tries to come from two different angles of the same character that's just a persona for himself to sort of express a side of himself that he couldn't express if he was talking himself. And you can tell because the book I'm reading at the moment by him, Full of Life, is kind of like, it comes from his perspective, but he actually refers to himself as John Fante, not Altero Bindini in this book. I think this is a good comparison because when he refers to himself as John Fante, um, or when he's coming from himself, he's a lot calmer. You don't get the antics. You don't get like this him talking arrogantly or so buffoonish, I guess, for lack of a better word. But in Dreams from Bunker Hill, he's absolutely crazy. You have no idea what this character is gonna do half the time. He seems to absolutely make it up as he goes along, and he throughout it he'll tell you it's because of some legitimately great reason, but like it's not really that great of a reason half the time of what he's doing. He's just sort of squandering great opportunities, opportunities that people today would beg for, but Bandini just seems to just be like, phew. But that's what makes him such a lovable character, I guess, for the underground. That's especially why Bukowski probably looked up to Bandini so much, because Bukowski, even if if you read The Post Office, you might like, or you probably love, or if you love The Post Office, I mean, like you'll probably love Dreams from Bunker Hill because they kind of do the same thing. Both of them, Chinaski and Bandini. I guess like a big something I quite liked, enjoyed a lot about this version of Bandini in particular, as opposed to the other, is or as opposed to After Dust, is that he's a lot. Fante definitely as I've said before, like comes from a different angle. Like in After Dust, he's very braggadocious, very full of himself, very like someone that thinks they're a borderline god, all that nonsense. But like in this, Dreams from hold up again, Dreams from Bunker Hill, he's like um unstable, but like to the point where like he'll just start crying and like for things that aren't worth crying about. Like there's a part of the book where he keeps begging for like because he gets this job as a scriptwriter eventually, and yeah, and he just goes on and he just starts crying because he's getting paid. I can't remember actually, but like I think he's being paid, and then but he isn't getting an opportunity to write, and because he's not getting an opportunity to write, he's getting more and more upset. He's like, I just want to write, I just want to write, and then like every time he's told no, he just gets more and more upset and crying, being a bit of a bitch, for like lack of a better word. But then like he'll he'll spurt back up and then like just become very angry, or I guess he's kind of manipulative as well because like he kind of just uses his sadder side to make himself seem more vulnerable and sensitive to women, because I think he seduces the boss's wife at some point, like the guy he's working for at the script writing. He didn't know it was his wife, but I think it was it was supposed to be she was one of the secretaries, but like it was never like established who she was till it was revealed that she was the wife, and Bandini, he's just like he just feels terrible about it, but not too bad because he sort of gets over it. You never hear that part mentioned in the book ever again. There's another part of the book where Bandini is sort of like lying throughout the novel, like trying to make himself seem more interesting than he actually is, like for but then it also kind of contradicts like his personal beliefs. It seems like he's becoming worse the longer he is in Bunker Hill. It's like a part of Los Angeles, and which where he's living in like a hotel, but he seems to be getting worse and worse, and he just contradicts himself a lot. So like, there's a part of the book where he essentially starts lying because he goes home to see his family and he starts lying. He starts like his little siblings are like asking him like what it's like to be in Hollywood. Have you met this celebrity? Have you met that celebrity? And he's like, oh yeah, 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 I'm friends with them. Like da 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 da. And maybe he's joking for most of the part, but like it's really hard to tell if he's like being legitimate with them or not. And he he then works for this woman. I think it's still related to the script job that he was given, but he's been hired to write a western with this very overweight and kind of obnoxious woman, who described as very obnoxious woman who seems to care more about people she knows than uh, the skills that she has, and then she goes on to like just like brag to him, and they get like no writing done. And I think Bandini on the second day he's just like, you know, I'm done with working with this woman. She doesn't actually you know, have any skills. She just talks about how great she is, which is kind of a funny reflection because he's exactly the same. He's kind of the same as her. Like, I don't think there is a single part of the book where, apart from like this article or short story he wrote, which is kind of similar to Us Dust. It's just referring to this short story that he wrote, and people are like, "Oh, that was great," and then like that seems to be all he has, like because like he doesn't do anything else great throughout it. Like and he seemed very delusional of how great he is. Like, there's even like a part of the book where he goes up to, he sees a writer that he also admires, and he goes up to him and he's like, "Oh man, I love your work," and he puts his hand out to shake it, and the man does not reciprocate. He does not really care. Like, he doesn't shake his hand back. And Bandini is so upset by this, he goes to his back into his office at his typewriter, and he just starts typing this really hateful letter to no one just to make himself feel better, and he even writes that he'll never read another line of this man's work. And Jesus, like he's just such a little pussy throughout the whole book. But it's great. There's even a part of the book where speaking of like contradictions, like he's like throughout it, he's like, I think a big theme of this book is reality versus expectation, I guess, where he sees himself as being a lot more I guess self-important or like interesting than he actually is, or like better than most people. Like, there's a part of the book where he's offered services from a prostitute. Like, he's in her room. She lives like across the hall from him in this hotel that he's staying at, and at that point in the novel, he turns it down, and then the next day he makes advances on a woman he was working with, not the same woman, not the big woman, but another woman that he was working for, and he she turns him down. I won't spoil that part of the book, but it doesn't go very well. And then he goes back to the prostitute in his hotel, and he's just like, okay, let's do this. So he's like, it's almost like but then he doesn't go back, and then he doesn't really acknowledge the fact that he was able to stoop that low, or not low, but I guess he doesn't see himself as part of the underground. He thinks he's something else, or maybe he does think he's part of the underground. I don't know. He never really explains who he. I don't think he really knows who he is throughout the book, which is kind of sad. Makes me feel bad for the character. I thought what was great, or what I enjoyed from the book, what makes it entertaining. I would say the only con, or like what cons, or the worst part of the book is sort of like this whole part where he doesn't live with him, but is friends with a wrestler. Really boring to read. Like not the funniest or the most interesting part, but it wasn't excruciating or anything. But I mean the best part of that wrestling thing was it's sort of part where he's like making fun of the wrestler and he's like writing him poetry that's like by someone else. It's kind of funny actually, like because Bandini he can't even write like original poetry to for this guy, and then he passes it off like he's joking, like, oh, I'm messing with this guy by like selling him secondhand poetry. But it's like debatable, like whether he's just doing that because he can't write or like who knows. I didn't really enjoy that section of the book. I thought it was a bit alright, like not the most entertaining to read. And another part, I guess like my biggest gripe with the book is that I think it does hit too many of the same beats as Ask the Dust. But I appreciate that it's from a different angle. I appreciate John Fante like wrote this character completely different. I think if the character was exactly the same as Ask the Dust, like or how he is in Ask the Dust, I don't think I would have enjoyed this book whatsoever. I think it would have just been too no more. I don't know. Like it would just been like not interesting to me. But I'm glad it came from a different angle. I think Fonte was very aware of, how that it would have gone very thin if he had kept writing the character the same way. But I haven't read the other Bandini book yet, so I don't know what that one's like. But I know the other ones. He always comes from a different angle. Like until wait until spring Bandini. You wouldn't even think, like, apart from the fact that it's the same character. I was very taken aback by how much of a different act, because it's even in third person as well, which I thought was great. Um, but yeah, my overall thoughts. It was a pretty great book. It's very fun to dissect. It's a fun book. You will have fun with it, and if you don't, then that's okay. This has been Jack. Hopefully, I do another one of these. Goodbye.